Neri stepped off the interstellar shuttle, her iridescent skin catching Earth's sunlight for the first time. The colors rippled across her slender form, blues, purples, and greens shifting in response to her excitement and nervousness. Four eyes blinked in sequence, a natural reaction when Talons processed new information. Earth looked different from the hologram she had studied. It smelled different too, rich with organic compounds unfamiliar to her. "Welcome to Earth Station Alpha," said the human greeter, trying not to stare at Neri's constantly changing skin patterns. "I'm Administrator Subin. We're honored to host the first Talon exchange scientist." Neri's translator device processed her melodic speech patterns into standard human language. "The honor is mine. My people have waited 3 generations for this opportunity." A small delegation accompanied her to ground transport. Humans moved differently than Talons, their bipedal locomotion seeming oddly efficient despite its simplicity. Neri had studied human physiology extensively, but seeing their movements in person fascinated her. The transport glided toward Seoul University's Xenobiology department, where Neri would spend the next year. Buildings rose like crystalline formations, not unlike the grown architecture of her homeworld, though clearly constructed rather than cultivated. "Professor Kim will meet us at the laboratory," Subin explained. "He's eager to begin the exchange." Neri's skin flashed pale blue, indicating acknowledgement. Among her people, she was considered young at 42 orbital cycles, but she had distinguished herself through her research on comparative biology. The Earth-Talon exchange program had selected her from thousands of applicants. The university complex appeared ahead, a blend of ancient stone buildings and modern transparent structures. Humans valued preserving their past while building their future, a concept Neri found intriguing. On Tala, old structures dissolved to nourish new ones in the natural cycle. "Here we are," Subin announced as they stopped before a sleek building with Interspecies Research Center displayed in multiple languages, including the curved symbols of Talon script. Inside, the air felt different, controlled, filtered, and slightly cooler than outside. Neri appreciated the gesture. The environmental adjustments matched Talon preferences without being uncomfortable for humans. Professor Kim waited in the lobby, a compact human with facial hair around his mouth and intelligent eyes. He bowed slightly, a human gesture Neri had practiced responding to. "Welcome, Specialist Neri. Your research preceded you. Your paper on cellular adaptation across gravity gradients was exceptional." His voice carried genuine excitement. Neri's skin rippled with pink highlights, pleasure, and pride. "Thank you, Professor. Your work on mammalian reproductive evolutionary patterns inspired much of my approach." They moved through the building, passing laboratories where humans and various equipment worked in harmony. Neri noticed other humans watching her, with curiosity but not fear, a promising sign. The laboratory assigned to their joint research gleamed with equipment, some familiar and some uniquely human in design. A workspace had been modified for Talon ergonomics, with adjustable platforms accommodating her different body structure. "We'll begin orientation tomorrow," Professor Kim explained. "Today is for settling in and adjustments." Neri moved to the window, gazing at the university grounds where humans walked, talked, and interacted. 2 humans held hands as they walked, a pair bonding display she had read about. "Your species has fascinating social structures," she commented, "especially your reproductive behaviors." Professor Kim adjusted his glasses slightly. "How do Talons reproduce? Your literature mentions cellular division, but details are sparse." Neri turned all 4 eyes toward him. "We divide our genetic material through parthenogenesis after cellular maturation. A Talon produces 1 offspring every 15 cycles, after accumulating sufficient nutrition and environmental stability." "Asexual reproduction?" Kim asked, fascination evident. "Yes, we find your binary reproductive system quite complex by comparison." Neri's skin rippled with academic curiosity. 2 distinct forms of the same species, each carrying half the genetic material, requiring physical merging. Kim smiled. When you put it that way, it does sound unnecessarily complicated, yet effective. Neri added, your species has remarkable genetic diversity because of it. They spent the afternoon setting up Neri's equipment. She carefully arranged specialized instruments from her homeworld, including a molecular resonator that analyzed cellular structures without damaging them. Human physiology is fascinating, Neri said as she calibrated the device. Our reproduction method through cellular division is nothing like yours. Professor Kim nodded. We have much to learn from each other. Our differences make this exchange valuable. As evening approached, Neri was shown to her living quarters, a modified apartment with environmental controls that could create the slightly higher humidity and lower gravity she preferred. The university had thought of everything. Alone in her new space, Neri activated her communication array. Connecting with the Talon homeworld, her scientific mentor's image appeared, the elder Talon skin patterns showing dignified anticipation. I have arrived safely, Neri reported. The humans have been welcoming and scientifically curious. Excellent. What are your initial observations? The elder asked. Neri's skin pulsed thoughtfully. They are more diverse in appearance than our simulations suggested. Their binary reproduction system creates remarkable variation. Focus your studies there, the elder advised. Understanding their reproductive biology may provide insights into their social structures and decision-making. After the communication ended, Neri stood at her window, watching Earth's single moonrise. Tomorrow would begin her detailed study of humanity, especially their complex reproductive biology, so different from her own species. Her 4 eyes blinked in sequence, a sign of excitement. The fundamental mystery of human reproduction had captured her scientific curiosity, and she couldn't wait to learn more. 2 weeks passed quickly as Neri settled into her research routine at Seoul University. Each day brought new discoveries about Earth and its dominant species. She had mastered the laboratory equipment, learned the names of her 23 human colleagues, and even attempted to eat human food, though her digestive system could only process certain fruits and synthesized proteins. The morning started like any other. Neri arrived at the laboratory early, her skin glowing a focused blue-green as she reviewed cellular samples. Professor Kim had provided her with anonymous human tissue cultures for comparative analysis. The differences between human and Talon cellular structures fascinated her. Good morning, Neri, said Minji, her human research assistant, entering the lab with 2 cups. I brought you the special tea you like. Neri's upper eyes blinked in appreciation while her lower pair remained fixed on the microscope. Thank you. The dried flowers in this beverage have interesting effects on my sensory receptors. Minji smiled, placing the cup near Neri, but not too close to the equipment. Over the past weeks, they had developed a comfortable working relationship. Minji had been assigned to help Neri navigate human customs and laboratory protocols, but their interactions had evolved into something resembling friendship. No research this afternoon, Minji reminded her. We have the department celebration at 2 o'clock. Neri's skin rippled slightly with yellow, indicating mild distress at the schedule disruption. Is this celebration necessary for my research objectives? It's necessary for being part of the team, Minji explained patiently. Besides, Director Park specifically requested your presence. The celebration was held in the department's largest conference room. Humans had transformed the space with decorations, colorful paper objects hanging from the ceiling and tables covered with various foods and drinks. Neri observed that humans seemed to mark social events by consuming calories together, an interesting bonding behavior. She stood near the wall, watching the interactions with scientific interest. Human social dynamics were complex. Some groups laughed loudly, while others spoke in hushed tones. Physical contact varied from brief touches on arms to embraces. Neri recorded these observations mentally for her evening report. Professor Kim approached with a small plate. Try these rice cakes. They're made from plants you can digest. Neri carefully took one, her 4-fingered hand moving with precision. Thank you for considering my dietary needs. Before they could continue their conversation, Director Park tapped a glass with a metal object, creating a sound that immediately quieted the room. The director was a tall human with gray hair and an authoritative presence. "May I have your attention, please?" he called out, raising a glass filled with amber liquid. "I have wonderful news to share with our department family." The humans gathered closer, their facial expressions showing anticipation. Nari remained where she was, observing. "Congratulations to June and Hyun," announced Director Park, gesturing to a young couple standing near him. "Their family will grow by one this winter." The room erupted in cheers and applause. Humans moved toward the couple, offering physical contact and verbal expressions of pleasure. Nari stood still, her skin shifting to confused patterns of green and purple. She understood the individual words but could not comprehend their combined meaning or the intense emotional response they generated. Minji noticed Nari's confusion and moved to her side. "Are you all right? Your skin is doing that swirly thing it does when you're confused." "I do not understand the announcement," Nari admitted. "What does family will grow by one signify? Will they adopt another adult into their living structure?" Minji's eyes widened slightly. "Oh, no, they're having a baby. Hyun is pregnant." "A baby." Nari's translator device emitted a strange tone as it processed the word, lacking a direct Talon equivalent. "A new human," Minji clarified, gesturing with her hands to indicate something small. "Through reproduction." Nari's skin suddenly flashed bright pink, a color she had never displayed before in Minji's presence. The human recognized it must indicate some strong emotion. "Are you embarrassed?" Minji asked gently. "Among my species, this would be considered a private matter," Nari explained, her voice quieter than usual. "But more significantly, I am embarrassed by my lack of knowledge. I am a xenobiologist who does not understand the reproductive process of the species I am studying. This is unprofessional." Minji smiled reassuringly. "Don't worry. Human reproduction isn't exactly common knowledge for non-humans. We don't expect you to know everything about us." Around them, the celebration continued. The couple received small packages wrapped in decorative paper. Nari watched as they opened these gifts, revealing tiny garments and objects clearly not sized for adult humans. "Those are for the baby," Minji explained, following Nari's gaze. "They won't be used for several months, until after the baby is born." "Born," Nari repeated, the translator again struggling with the concept. June, one of the celebrated couple, approached them with a plate of food. "Hello, Specialist Nari. I'm glad you could join our celebration." Nari's skin stabilized to a polite blue-green. "Congratulations on your upcoming cellular division." Both humans paused, then June laughed gently. "Well, that's one way to put it, I suppose. Thank you." After June moved on, Minji leaned closer to Nari. "Maybe we should arrange for you to learn more about human reproduction. Since you're studying comparative biology, it would be relevant to your research." Nari's 4 eyes blinked in rapid sequence, her species equivalent of an enthusiastic nod. "Yes, I require this knowledge. How could I, a biologist, know so little about such a fundamental process?" As the celebration continued around them, Nari watched the pregnant human with new interest. Hyun showed no visible signs of the process occurring within her body. How strange that such a momentous biological event could be so hidden. On her homeworld, a Talon preparing to divide displayed obvious external changes. "Tomorrow," Nari decided, her skin now showing determined patterns of blue and gold, "I must begin studying human reproduction properly. For scientific completeness." Minji nodded, unsure if Nari fully understood what she was getting into. "I'll help you find the right resources. It's an important part of understanding humans." The morning after the celebration, Nari arrived at the laboratory earlier than usual. Her skin displayed patterns of determination, steady blue stripes against her natural purple background. She had spent most of the night researching human reproduction in the university database, but the information was fragmented and often too technical even for her translator. She needed better resources, more complete information, the courage to ask directly. When Professor Kim entered the lab, he found Nari already analyzing cellular samples. "You're here early," he noted, hanging his coat on a hook by the door. "I have questions," Nari replied without looking up from her microscope. "But I am uncertain about human protocols regarding these questions." Professor Kim pulled up a stool beside her workstation. "Scientific questions are always welcome here, Nari. What's troubling you?" Nari's skin rippled slightly. Hesitation. "Yesterday's celebration highlighted a gap in my knowledge. I do not adequately understand human reproductive processes." "Ah," Professor Kim nodded. "June and Hyun's baby announcement." "Yes." Nari adjusted the microscope settings. "On my world, we divide. 1 becomes 2. Simple. Efficient. But human reproduction seems much more complex." Professor Kim considered his response carefully. "It is complex, but we have excellent educational resources. Would you like me to arrange access to our biology department's teaching materials?" "Please," Nari said, her upper eyes blinking in appreciation while her lower eyes remained focused on her work. Later that day, Nari found herself walking toward Director Park's office. Minji had suggested that the director, who oversaw all research programs, might provide the most comprehensive resources. The director's office reflected his position, spacious, with actual paper books lining one wall, and a large window overlooking the university gardens. Director Park looked up from his computer as Nari entered. "Specialist Nari, welcome. How can I help you today?" Nari's skin briefly flashed with nervous pink spots before settling into a composed blue. "Director Park," she began after gathering her courage, "I wish to understand human reproduction fully. For scientific purposes." If Director Park was surprised by her direct request, he didn't show it. Instead, he leaned back in his chair and nodded thoughtfully. "I see. This is certainly relevant to your comparative biology research. Yesterday's celebration made me realize my knowledge is incomplete," Nari explained. "As a scientist, such gaps are unacceptable." Director Park smiled slightly. "Even human scientists specialize, Nari. No one expects you to understand everything about our biology immediately. Nevertheless, I wish to learn." Director Park considered her request, tapping his fingers gently on his desk. "We have educational materials designed for advanced biology courses. Would that help?" "Yes," Nari replied, her 4 eyes blinking in sequence. "Comprehensive materials would be most efficient. I'll arrange access to our medical school's reproductive biology curriculum," Director Park said. "It's detailed but presented in a clinical scientific context." "Thank you," Nari said, her skin showing blue patterns of gratitude. The next morning, Nari found a notification on her laboratory computer. Director Park had granted her access to a comprehensive series of videos and accompanying texts from the university's medical education archives. The series was titled Human Reproductive Biology, a complete overview. Minji noticed Nari examining the file list. "Oh, they gave you the med school videos. Those are really detailed. Is that appropriate?" Nari asked, suddenly concerned about possible cultural taboos. "Of course," Minji assured her. "They're scientific educational materials. Medical students watch them all the time." Nari decided to postpone her regular research schedule. This knowledge gap needed immediate attention. She connected her neural interface device, a small translucent disc that adhered to her upper left temple, to better process and store the information. The first video began with cellular basics, explaining human gametes. Nari watched intently as the clinical narrator described sperm and egg cells, their formation through meiosis, and their unique properties. "Fascinating," she murmured as the video showed microscope footage of human sperm cells swimming. "Motile reproductive cells." The video continued, explaining the female reproductive cycle, ovulation, and the preparation of the uterine lining. Each process was presented with detailed animations and actual medical imagery. Hours passed as Neri absorbed video after video. The laboratory grew quiet around her, other researchers completing their work and departing. Even Minji had left, placing a cup of tea near Nari before quietly saying goodbye. When the fertilization video began, Nari leaned closer to the screen. The animation showed sperm cells attempting to penetrate an egg cell, followed by the successful entry of one sperm and the immediate chemical changes preventing others from entering. "Remarkable," she whispered, taking detailed notes. "Selective cellular fusion." The video series continued through embryonic development, showing cell division, differentiation, and organ formation. Neri was particularly struck by the formation of the neural tube that would become the brain and spinal cord. "Their brains begin forming so early," she noted. Talon offspring emerged with minimal neural development, gaining cognitive function over their first year. When the video reached the section on pregnancy and fetal development, Neri's skin displayed patterns of scientific awe, rippling gold and white highlights against her purple base. "Live internal gestation. Incredible," she whispered as the video showed ultrasound images of developing human fetuses. The narrator explained how the placenta formed a connection between mother and developing child, providing nutrients and oxygen while removing waste. By the time Neri reached the final videos on childbirth, night had fallen outside the laboratory windows. The clinical footage of actual human births caused her skin to display completely new patterns, waves of blue, gold, and white rippling from her core outward. When the last video ended, Neri sat motionless, processing everything she had learned. Human reproduction was nothing like Talon's cellular division. It was messy, complex, inefficient in many ways, and yet somehow beautiful in its intricacy. She disconnected her neural interface and stored her notes. Tomorrow, she would review everything again, compare it to other mammalian reproduction, and perhaps begin formulating questions for Professor Kim. As Neri prepared to leave the laboratory, she paused at the window, looking out at the few humans still walking across campus in the evening light. She saw them differently now, understanding the complex biological journey each had taken to exist. "Two beings contributing to create one new being," she said softly to herself. "So different from our way, yet serving the same purpose, continuation of the species." Her skin settled into a calm, thoughtful pattern as she gathered her things and headed to her quarters, her mind still processing the remarkable differences between their worlds. For the next 3 days, Neri immersed herself in human reproductive biology. Beyond the educational videos, she requested additional research papers, historical texts on reproductive medicine, and even cultural materials discussing the social aspects of human reproduction. The subject consumed her scientific curiosity completely. Professor Kim noticed the shift in her research focus. "You've been very dedicated to studying our reproduction," he observed as they worked side by side in the laboratory. Neri's skin rippled with thoughtful blue patterns. "It is unlike anything on my world. The complexity is beautiful." "Beautiful." Professor Kim raised his eyebrows. "Most humans see it as simply biological." "Perhaps that is because you take it for granted," Neri replied, her 4 eyes blinking in sequence. To an outside observer, the intricacies are remarkable. 2 different specialized cell types, from 2 different bodies, combining genetic material to create something entirely new. The professor smiled. "I've never thought of it quite that way." On the morning of the weekly departmental research meeting, Neri prepared her notes carefully. She had not been scheduled to present anything, but a new understanding compelled her to share her observations. Her skin displayed unusual patterns, steady waves of confident gold with blue highlights. The meeting room filled with the usual 20 researchers, Professor Kim and Director Park. Professor Sung, the elderly department head who rarely attended regular meetings, had also arrived. His presence suggested important announcements would be made. The meeting began with routine updates. 2 human researchers discussed their progress on plant adaptation studies. Another team presented preliminary findings on marine organism responses to changing ocean temperatures. Neri listened attentively, her skin displaying polite interest. When Director Park asked, "Any other business before we conclude?" Neri raised her hand. The gesture she had learned was appropriate for requesting attention. Director Park looked surprised but nodded. "Specialist Neri, you have something to share." Neri stood, her slender form towering slightly over the seated humans. The room grew quieter as all attention turned to her. Even researchers who typically checked their devices during meetings looked up with interest. "I would like to share some observations about human reproduction," Neri began. Her translator device conveyed her melodic speech patterns into clear human language. A few humans exchanged glances, but Director Park nodded encouragingly. "Please proceed. The reproductive method humans have evolved is extraordinarily efficient," she explained to the gathered scientists. Her skin displayed patterns of academic excitement, pulsing blues and golds in complex arrangements. "The nurturing of offspring within the body creates a bond our species achieves through different means." The room remained silent, researchers listening with unusual focus. Neri continued, her upper hands gesturing to emphasize key points while her lower hands remained still in the formal Talon speaking posture. "In my species, reproduction occurs through cellular division. A parent divides, creating an offspring that is genetically identical. The process is efficient but lacks the genetic diversity your method creates." Professor Sung, who had been watching intently, leaned forward with interest. "How do Talons perceive our reproduction?" His voice carried the weight of his senior position, yet held genuine curiosity. Neri turned her 4 eyes toward him. "As a beautiful example of evolutionary adaptation," she replied. "Different from ours, but equally valid. This understanding bridges our differences better than any diplomatic treaty." Professor Sung nodded slowly, his wrinkled face thoughtful. "Interesting perspective. Would you elaborate on what aspects you find most significant?" Neri's skin rippled with scientific enthusiasm. 3 aspects in particular. First, the combination of genetic material from 2 individuals creates remarkable diversity within your species. Second, the development of offspring within the body establishes a physiological connection before birth. Third, the dependency period after birth fosters complex social bonds. She paused, organizing her thoughts before continuing. "Talons emerge fully formed but smaller. We do not experience the prolonged dependency of human offspring. This difference shapes our entire social structure." Director Park raised a hand. "Are you suggesting that human reproductive biology influences our social organization?" "Unquestionably," Neri replied. "Your reproduction requires cooperation between biological sexes. It creates dependency relationships between parents and offspring. These necessities have shaped human society at fundamental levels." The room remained silent for several moments as the humans processed this perspective. Then Professor Kim spoke. "I've never considered how different our societies might be if our reproduction worked differently." "Exactly," Neri said, her skin displaying patterns of scientific satisfaction. "My research suggests that many interspecies misunderstandings stem from biological differences we take for granted." She activated her tablet, displaying a simple diagram comparing Talon and human reproductive cycles. "Consider time investment. A human female carries offspring internally for 9 months, then provides care for years. A Talon completes division in 3 weeks, and the offspring reaches self-sufficiency within 1 month." Professor Sung stroked his chin thoughtfully. "So Talons invest less time in each reproductive event?" "Yes," Neri confirmed. "But we reproduce less frequently as a result of the energy demands. The total population growth rates are surprisingly similar despite our different methods." The meeting, scheduled for 1 hour, extended well past its intended conclusion as researchers asked questions and Neri shared her observations. The conversation moved beyond pure biology into the social and even philosophical implications of reproductive differences. When Director Park finally ended the discussion, citing other scheduled commitments, several researchers approached Neri to continue the conversation. "Your perspective is fascinating," said Dr. Hanna, a human evolutionary biologist. "Would you consider collaborating on a comparative paper? This could open entirely new avenues of research." Neri's skin displayed pleased patterns. "I would welcome such collaboration." As the room slowly emptied, Professor Sung approached Neri. The elderly scientist moved carefully, his body showing the effects of advanced human age. "In my 60 years of xenobiology," he said quietly, "I've never heard our reproduction described as you have today. You've given us a gift, the ability to see ourselves through new eyes." Neri's skin shifted to respectful deep blue. "You honor me with your words, Professor." "No," he replied with a slight smile. "You honor us with your insight. Sometimes it takes an outside perspective to truly understand ourselves." Later that evening, as Neri recorded her daily research notes, she added a personal observation. "Today marked a turning point. The humans began to see me not just as a visiting scientist, but as someone who might help them understand themselves better. And perhaps in understanding their reproduction, I have gained insight into what connects all intelligent species, the drive to continue, to create new life, and to understand the universe through that creation." The seasons changed on Earth, and Neri watched with fascination as autumn leaves fell and winter snow blanketed the university campus. Her research had evolved far beyond its original scope. What began as a study of comparative cellular biology had grown into a comprehensive analysis of how reproductive methods shape society, culture, and even art. Neri's presentation at the department meeting had sparked intense interest. Within weeks, she found herself collaborating with researchers from multiple disciplines: biology, anthropology, sociology, and even psychology. Her unique perspective as a Talon studying human reproduction offered insights the humans themselves had never considered. "The paper has been accepted," Professor Kim announced one morning, entering the laboratory where Neri was examining tissue samples. "The Journal of Interspecies Biology wants to publish our comparative reproduction study as their cover feature." Neri's skin displayed patterns of professional satisfaction, steady gold waves against her purple base. "This is excellent news. Will the images be included?" "All of them," Professor Kim confirmed. "The editors were particularly impressed by your comparative embryonic development timeline." The paper, titled "Divergent Paths to Life: Comparative Analysis of Talon and Human Reproductive Strategies," had already generated buzz in scientific circles even before publication. It represented the first deep analysis of two completely different approaches to creating new life. As winter turned to spring, Neri received a message from the Talon High Council of Science. Her research had not only been noted but had prompted a formal expansion of the exchange program. 5 more Talon scientists had been selected to join her on Earth. "They arrive tomorrow," Director Park told her during their weekly meeting. "The university is providing a special welcome ceremony. Would you like to address them?" Neri's 4 eyes blinked in sequence, her species' expression of pleased surprise. "I would be honored. Have their research specialties been determined?" "Based on your recommendations," Director Park confirmed. 2 reproductive biologists, 1 sociologist, 1 neuroscientist, and 1 cultural anthropologist. The day of arrival brought unusual activity to the research center. Humans hurried about, preparing laboratories and living spaces for the new Talon scientists. Neri observed with amusement how differently humans approached such tasks compared to her people, with more verbal communication and less systematic efficiency, yet somehow achieving similar results. Neri stood beside Director Park in the university's ceremonial hall as the transport arrived. Her skin displayed formal patterns, structured blue and purple designs appropriate for official functions. She had adopted some human clothing customs, wearing a draped laboratory coat modified to accommodate her 4 arms. The first Talon to emerge was Elder Scientist Ho, a respected researcher whose skin showed the deep purple patterns of advanced age and wisdom. Behind him came 4 younger scientists, each displaying the nervous color patterns typical of first Earth exposure. "Welcome to Seoul University," Director Park said through a translator device. "We are honored by your presence and look forward to expanding our scientific cooperation." Elder Toll performed the formal Talon greeting gesture, a complex movement involving all 4 hands that Neri had not seen in many months. She responded with the same gesture, feeling a surprising emotional response to this reminder of home. After the formal welcome ceremony, Director Park and Neri led the new arrivals on a tour of the research facilities. The Talons moved with characteristic precision, their 4 eyes constantly scanning their surroundings, their skin displaying shifting patterns of scientific curiosity. As they reached the main laboratory, they encountered Hyun, now visibly pregnant, discussing research with 2 colleagues. The Talon visitors stopped, their skin displaying patterns of intense interest as they observed the physical manifestation of human reproduction they had only studied in theory. Hyun noticed their attention and smiled. "Hello, you must be our new visitors." Elder Toll's translator processed his melodic speech. "Greetings. I apologize for our attention, but seeing actual human gestation is fascinating." Rather than being offended, Hyun laughed. Neri had the same reaction. "Would you like to know what it feels like?" The question caused ripples of surprise across all 5 Talon visitors' skin. Such direct conversation about reproduction would be considered unusual on their world. With Hyun's permission, Elder Toll carefully placed 1 hand on her rounded abdomen. His skin immediately displayed patterns of scientific wonder when he felt movement from within. "Remarkable," he said softly. "The offspring moves independently while still inside." Neri watched this interaction with satisfaction. 6 months ago, such an exchange would have been unimaginable, filled with misunderstandings and potential offense. Now it represented genuine scientific and cultural exchange. Later, as the new arrivals settled into their quarters, Director Park and Neri stood in his office, overlooking the campus where humans and Talons now walk together. "Your research has opened new dialogue between our worlds," Director Park told Neri as they watched the new arrivals tour the facility. "The High Council mentioned that applications for Earth exchange positions have increased tenfold." Neri's skin glowed a soft blue of contentment. Scientific curiosity transcends our biological differences. In learning about human reproduction, I discovered something more important. We may create life differently, but our drive to understand life is the same. A notification appeared on Director Park's computer. "The interspecies medical exchange has approved our proposal. Human medical students will begin training with Talon division specialists next semester, and Talon scientists will observe human birth processes at Seoul Medical Center. This will benefit both species," Neri observed. "Humans may develop new insights into cellular regeneration from studying our division process, and we may better understand our own reproductive complications by comparing with a completely different system," Director Park added. As evening approached, Neri joined a mixed group of human and Talon scientists in the university garden. June and Hyun were there, along with Elder Toll and Professor Kim. The conversation flowed easily between topics, research plans, cultural observations, and personal experiences. Neri watched as Hyun guided Elder Toll's hand to feel another movement from her unborn child. The Elder Talon's skin displayed patterns of wonder that Neri recognized from her own first encounters with human reproduction. "It seems impossible that 2 such different species could find such meaningful connection," Professor Kim said quietly, joining Neri at the edge of the group. "Not impossible," Neri replied, "just requiring the right bridge." She looked at the humans and Talons working side by side, no longer separated by their biological differences, but united by their shared wonder of the universe. In the fading light, Neri's skin displayed a pattern she had never shown before, a harmonious blend of Talon formal patterns and rippling waves inspired by human artistic expressions. Without realizing it, she had developed a new form of skin communication, one that bridged both worlds, just as her research had done. "I believe," She said softly to Professor Kim that understanding how we each bring new life into the universe may be the most important bridge of all. If we can appreciate the beauty in our differences there, we can find common ground anywhere.